welcome. This is episode 2 in our series with Claire and I, and we're going to be answering all our most frequently asked questions. Quick introduction again, if you didn't see the first episode. So I'm Jo, I'm an ex-teacher. I was a teacher for 10 years, and I now have an Instagram page, which is all about life after teaching, which is Miss More, No More. And Claire, let you introduce yourself.
I taught for a little bit longer. I'm an ex-teacher. I taught for 20 years, so I'm slightly older than Jo. And I'm now a therapist and coach. Mainly I work with educators.
Today's episode is all about making that decision to leave. First question that I get a lot and Claire gets a lot is, how did you leave the classroom? How did you get out? I didn't ultimately make the decision to leave until I watched a video called the Pit Pony Life After Teaching, which again I'll put a link to. She made it really simple. She said you need to take an absolute baseline figure of what you need to earn to be able to survive, basically. So the first thing I did, knowing that I was going to leave teaching, is I wrote down a list of all my outgoings. I crossed out all the things that I was subscribed to that I didn't need. So, you know, things like Netflix, you know, all that extra things that you have that you don't need. So I was just left with, you know, utility bills, mortgage. I added that all together. And what she says to do is to get that figure that you need to have a month, divide it by 4 to get your weekly, how much you need to earn a week, and then divide that figure by 5, and you've got a daily amount that you need to earn to be able to survive. And I remember seeing that figure and thinking, okay, that's not actually a lot of money that I need to earn a day to be able to make sure that everything's paid. Now, I wasn't coming up with a way of leaving teaching and going on to my next forever career. It was just like, I just need to get out. I need something to get me out now. So when I saw that figure, I was, well, that's a lot less than you get paid a day for doing a day's worth of supply. It was a lot less than, you know, I think if I tutored 2 children, I would have got that amount covered. So in my head, I was just like, right, okay, I can do this. This is actually a possibility for me. I worked out my baseline. I worked out how much I needed to earn after, you know, trying to find something to do with that. I decided, and then I made a timeline of when I was going to do all of this. So I wanted to leave at the end of the school year. I'd made the decision in May sort of time that I was going to leave. I handed in my notice at the end of May, ready to leave for August. So when I decided in that May to leave, that was the month that I actually started tutoring.
Okay.
And any money, I used to do it off school, which you might think, oh my God, you're doing teaching and tutoring. But it was just like 1 kid a week, and it was just starting to build up the tutoring and that confidence that I could do it. And any money that I earned from that, I was then squirreling away and putting away. I got all my little ducks lined up ready. So as soon as it hit September, I was ready to go. It was all about me taking control back of my life. It was all about, it wasn't necessarily about the money. I wasn't going out to earn thousands and thousands a day and a month. It was all about, I just want my life back. So I did tutoring, I set up a little preschool group, and then I wanted a bit of extra cash, so I did supply as well. And it just gave me like breathing space. It just gave me that moment. It cleared my head. I knew how much I needed to earn. I was able to earn it doing those 3 things. I just felt the weight come off my shoulder. Like, oh, that was my exit strategy. I started thinking about leaving 5 months before I actually did it. That is one of my biggest pieces of advice is to plan it out. If you really want it to be a success, I think you do have to kind of start planning these things in advance.
So I taught in the UK.
Yeah.
And then I taught abroad. Not long into this new term in 2019, I remember clearly I woke up one morning and this voice in my head said, "You're done." And it was the weirdest feeling.
Yeah.
And it was like from then on, everything just then started to fall apart. It is tricky in the UK. So there's this leaving thing, is these periods of leaving, and when can you hand in your notice? And just so that you know, when you're abroad, it's even more difficult because it's quite normal. So you go to back to school in the September, and then you have to let people know, usually by the Christmas, you have to say whether you want to teach that following year. That's quite a long time.
Yeah.
I just about managed it. So by the end of January, because I could have handed my notice in, because I knew about the health scare in December 2019. So by the end of January, I was able to hand in my notice. But like Joe said, it was a case of this just huge relief. Now, in terms of Joe doing this exit plan thing, what I had done was I already knew that I had a cushion. Now, this cushion wasn't for me to leave teaching and this cushion, this money that I was saving and whatever, that wasn't for me to leave teaching and to rely on or to put into any sort of training or anything like that. But that's what it became. So for the first time in my life, I put myself and my health first. And it became this situation of, if all that money goes on me and my health, as long as I still live, actually, that's the most important thing. So so in that respect, so like what Joe's saying, the planning, maybe saving, whatever, or working out the minimum, like try and do that. But even if you just leave, obviously you're a teacher, there are things that you can do. It was COVID year, so initially, like most teachers, my first thought was, I'll tutor. And actually, my little thought was, I think because I taught abroad, I was used to traveling, thinking, oh, I think I would quite like to travel around and tutor online and visit different countries and whatever and do that. And I've got a bit of money to support me, that'll be fine. And then COVID hit. It was 2020 by this time, so they couldn't go anywhere. You feel like you're wanting to make changes and you feel like doors are closing. Do not worry, because that door closed, then I had to then think again. And this is when my therapy training popped up. Now, had that door not closed to the tutoring with COVID, very much closed, I think that I would have still pursued that teaching career, because so many teachers do that. But there was a little voice that allowed, this little voice that had been saying, what about therapy, what about therapy, what about being a therapist, for years and years and years. It allowed it to actually, I'd listen to it, think maybe I could do something with it. And I then, like Joe's talking about her values, my top value then became my health, and me realizing I need to put myself first, otherwise I couldn't help anybody else. So I found my therapy training, and everything I was learning I then applied to myself and realized it was benefiting myself. And then, so because it was working for me and I could see other people around me got interested and the techniques I was learning was working for them, so it sort of gave me that evidence that, oh, this is something that could work for me. And it is quite scary going into the self-employed world, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But I think, like Joe is saying, that unfortunately sometimes you do have to get quite fed up before you will be prepared to make a change.
Yeah. Another question we get,
I
don't know if I want to leave. What should I do? Option one is change school. Go find another school. Go look around and decide, is it just the school or is it something bigger than that? Because the amount of teachers, that I've spoken to are really positive. Actually, they've moved from one school to another, and particularly move into a bigger school as well, where the workload can be shared, where you've got more people around you, you've got that more support. There are so many benefits to working in a bigger school. However, some people enjoy working in smaller schools, and they prefer to work on their own and have that control over what they're planning teaching. And I think that's a good option for people who they don't want to leave teaching. They're still unsure. I think that option is not for burnt out teachers, if I'm honest. Option two, again, if you don't want to leave teaching, you still want to keep your foot in the door of education, go down the supply route. Some people don't like the uncertainty of having that call in the morning, but you don't have to do that. You can do pre-booked only. Point, I was just like, can you just give me key stage 1 and early years, because that's where I feel confident and that's where I feel comfortable. Eventually I realized it really doesn't matter, any year group's fine. If you turn up at a school and you don't quite like it, you leave and you don't return to that school. It's quite empowering. They feel like you get a big element of control back from doing supply teaching, because you can pick and choose where you want to go and where you don't want to go. Could change your role, can't you? So speak to leadership team and say, actually, I don't want to do classroom teaching. Could I do PPA cover instead? You could almost like negotiate with leadership, saying actually classroom teaching isn't me. I'd rather do. That's a possibility. It depends how open your leadership team are. Yeah, I know someone who's left classroom teaching, but she does, individual, intervention work with
Yes.
raising reading and things like that. And again, that's just reignited their spark for teaching. Or you leave altogether if you're not sure. So I feel like there's different avenues you can go down to try and explore what it is that's just not sitting right with you first. And also the fact is, you can always go back to it.
Indeed.
I'm on a fixed term contract with the job that I'm at the moment. That finishes in April. I've got it there. It's like, it's just sat next to me. I'm like, oh, I can pick that up again if I want, and I can put it back down again. So it's not you don't have to make this huge life-changing decision. I mean, if you wanted, you could just save enough money, take a term out of teaching, and then go back to doing something else. It's not as much as people, it is a big decision. I feel it's not as much of a big deal as it needs to be.
It depends how far along you are. When I was talking about mindsets and them being fixed and what have you. Yeah. And the more fixed your mindset is, the more, like for me, it became this real do or die situation about I must do this, I must do this. And if you can just get a bit of flexibility, like just Joe's saying, there's all these options. I mean, switching schools and go abroad. What Joe's saying is that feeling of you still want to teach, it's worth exploring that, because I even did that after everything that I went through. And I qualified as a therapist, and I actually was doing lots of free work and just sort of starting to find my way. And then I got asked a year after I'd left, could I go and help a home ed community in the early years? And my immediate thought was, oh, could I? I'd got way beyond Joe and thought, I never want to do, I don't really want to talk to a teacher again. It got that for me, like, But like Joe said, it's something in you. And so I went there, and it was very, very strange. For me, it was like, I can do it, but I just don't want to. And it was because I'd explored my options, and because I'd already started my therapy training, I'd started supporting people. And we'll talk about transferable skills another time. And I'd realized that my big mission of wanting to make a difference, which is what a lot of teachers go into it with children, I then realized, well, if you want to help children, if that's ultimately something that you still do want, and I do, if you help adults, if you help teachers, you are also helping children.
There are some people who wait until the very last moment to hand in their notice. A lot of people are a bit worried about the way that they're going to be treated if they hand in their notice. Again, that's a question that I get. How did you deal with the toxicity that comes with handing in notice? Now, not everyone experiences this, but it is a genuine fear that teachers have. They worry about how parents are going to treat them as well. Did you experience any of that when you handed in your notice, or was you one of the lucky ones?
It's really interesting because when you're abroad, leaving is a trickier process, and depending where you are, the whole paperwork and rigmarole, it can be, and to me it became this big feared thing. And so I really feared it and dreaded actually the leaving process. Once you've decided that you're going to do something, you will find a way. And once I decide, once we both got the relief that I was going to leave, and also when you're abroad, sometimes it's different to the UK. You quite often, if you're in a bigger school, and some of these schools are quite big, you might be in a little group of people that are going to be leaving. There's expat communities and things, and so you don't have to do all this leaving process stuff on your own. And when you know there's a way out, and as long as you've got your exit plan and you've got just something in place, I'm telling you, you can bear it. You can bear it because you've got that hope. And once you've got a goal, once you've got something to aim for, it keeps you going. And that relief that you won't have to be doing what you're doing
forever.
And it was way, way easier than I thought it would be. And I think, again, it was like, well, I just didn't care. I wasn't prepared to take anything personally. My mindset was all about looking to the future. And I wasn't bothering about what other people might be saying and doing. And I think that's another thing as well, because I'd already learned from my therapy training that putting myself first was the most important thing. There are strategies, aren't there? You can go and talk to, like I went and had a really good chat with my line manager, and he was really lovely with me, and he was the one that said, oh no, you can leave, and he supported me. And so I think that if you don't feel supported by one type of person, maybe go to another one, or even a therapist or somebody, just so you can just talk things through. So when you're saying things out loud and you listen to it, then you get this gut feeling about whether it feels right about what you're doing, and that will help you move forwards.
So just a few things that I made sure that I always had in place when I was teaching, and even more so when leaving teaching, was being part of a union.
Yes.
I just had to,
absolutely,
part of one, just to get some advice. And also sometimes you might not have anyone in the school that you feel comfortable sharing certain thoughts and feelings
yes.
with. So you need to be mindful. Whereas
You
if
do.
you had someone from the union, you can just pick up the phone, speak to someone, or pop it in an email and be like, is this right? Is this okay? Should this person be making me feel this way? If it does get to the point where it is really bad, as simple as just keeping a log of things that you think, oh, maybe I'm just exaggerating it, maybe it's not, but it's made me feel this kind of way, write it down and just keep it. And you might not do anything with it, you might just leave it. But if you keep a log of any of that, any comments, any sort of snidey little jibes that you think, I'm not too sure if that was a joke or not, but I'm feeling a certain way, and I feel uncomfortable with the way that they're talking to me, or anything really. Just keep a log of it. Don't have to do anything with it. You can keep it, or you've got it there if you do want to take anything further, or escalate anything, or you do want to put in a complaint or whatever. It was almost the sort of opposite for me. I sort of handed in my notice. I thought it would be this big deal, and it just really wasn't. And it just reminded me of how replaceable I am as a teacher. It doesn't matter. Went to SLT and said, look, I'm thinking of leaving. I hadn't put anything officially in writing, but my job was advertised before I'd even put that in writing.
That's the weird thing, isn't it?
I got really annoyed about it. And I just, looking back now, I'm just thinking, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You were leaving it anyway. I think it just really hurt my feeling. I haven't even added my notice in officially yet, and you've posted my job online. It's like just that final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I'm replaceable. Thanks very much for your 10 years. Next. it's just, that's how it is. My job's been advertised. It was right, head down. You've got X amount of weeks left. Eyes on the prize. Let's go. This is temporary. It was quite good to have someone. My year group partner, we were both going, so we were both in that mindset, like, come on, we got this, and we were keeping each other going right till the very end. If you are going to speak to your colleagues and speak to people, just be careful of who you're speaking to. I think just be careful of what you're saying and who you're saying it to. But I think people know in their school who they can run and talk to, and maybe who they can't.
If you haven't, there is, the group, when Joe was mentioning about Sharon, there are lots of Facebook groups, and there is that one particular one. And so there's always going to be things like Facebook groups where you can just go in and you will see there's so many people there. And if you put a post in, there'll be so many people who will have support for you, and they will understand. And you can go in and post anonymously.
The first episode that we did, the one before this one, which all about the teacher burnout, recognizing those signs, it's definitely well worth looking at that if you've got to this point. But the main point of this one was just really sitting back and making that decision, and making that the right decision for yourself, and only you can make that. But you have to sit down and make the time to be able to make that decision of, if you're going to stay in teaching, then you need to make sure you find the right school, and if you're not, then you need to go out there and find what else you are fabulous at, because there is so much. And then that is our next episode, isn't it, Claire?
It is. There are so many fabulous things you can do.
We will be doing that next time. Transferable skills.
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about what I do now outside of teaching. Same with Claire.
It's a really exciting world out there, for sure.
Oh, love that. That's a great one to end on, Claire.
Yeah.
It's an exciting world out there.